Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to our session, Cisco Wireless Supercharged by Catalyst Center. We have been preparing for this moment for a long time, and we are very excited to be able to share all we have prepared for you. We are going to be covering, hopefully, some very interesting topics for you. We will start with an introduction, and then speak a little about how you can get insights in your wireless network with AIOps using Catalyst Center. Then we will talk a little bit about NetOps and how we can help you take advantage of automation and operate your network more efficiently. And finally, we will close with a little bit of DevOps. Your presenters today, Stefan Honeder from Austria and Ignacio from Spain. We have been working at Cisco together for 27 years, and we have a wireless and network management focus.
Yeah, and like customers like you and partners is what I daily do. So I work with them and help them to adopt those technologies we are presenting today. Just a little remark, Ignacio, and my Spanish pronunciation is not the best. So I might call him also Nacho, which is also where he also likes to be called as well. So don't be confused on that one.
Yeah. And before we get started, we're going to do a one-question Slido, so if you don't mind taking out your phones and quickly scanning the QR code.
Which is already the first test for the wireless in this room, right?
So I'll give a couple more seconds, and then we'll jump to the question. Basically, we want to understand what is your current Catalyst Center situation.
Okay.
So you can still join while the question is there, but if you don't mind answering the question. Okay.
It's going up quite fast, 40 people,
yeah.
80, thank you very much.
We didn't put the answers in order, but nice. Well, we see that a lot of you are using it for your daily operations, and some of you want an update. We definitely have thought about making sure that for the ones that have never heard of it, everything makes sense, but we also have content for those of you that already are using Catalyst Center, so hopefully you can benefit from the content. Now, Stefan, take us to the introduction.
Yes, thank you very much, Nacho. Now, before we dive into the content, we thought about it's also very important to state why we built this session and what's our thinking behind that. Now, in order to build a great wireless experience, there need to be a lot of things done through a checklist, right? You need to plan the proper sites, do a site survey, select the right clients, the right infrastructure, hopefully Cisco, right? And you put that into operation, you configure it, and you optimize your configuration. Now still, even if you follow all the recommendations and all the checklists, sometimes reality just does not keep up with the experience your users have. Now in that case, because of the dynamic nature of wireless, that's obviously something where you need to have visibility to understand how you can improve the experience. Today we want to show you how you can supercharge your wireless by using Catalyst Center, which gives you visibility into a wireless network you haven't had before. We will show later how within 15 minutes, and yes, I have many customers that have experienced that, with 15 minutes you will get the visibility into a wireless you haven't had before. This really helps you to understand how you can improve this experience for your users, for your applications, and in the end for the business. Now this is the one piece, and Ignacio already said in the beginning, we also want to focus how you can operate your wireless efficiently. Now there are bigger wireless networks, there are smaller wireless networks. Nevertheless, there are tasks you need to do every day, once in a while, and you want to do that very efficiently maybe. We will show you and cover this as well, and Cisco Catalyst Center really helps you on this front as well. Now, since we are working a lot with the customers and the partners like you are, obviously we want to make it as practical and relevant for your daily business as it is possible. For that purpose, we are using everything we are presenting, software releases, hardware that's released, that's available for everyone in this room. So you can get home and take everything you learned today and put it into practice. Now, controller, we are focusing on 1712. Yes, obviously the new generation CW9800s are also supported. 1715 is the release you are using then. Wi-Fi 6, 6E, Wi-Fi 7 access points, and 237 from Catalyst Center. If not noted otherwise, those are the releases and you will be fine, right? Otherwise, we will state it in our slides that there is additional things you need to consider. Now, the flow of the presentation typically follows the following. We will show you functionality and provide you what's the value behind this functionality. Then we will show you how you can configure it, and we added a lot of tips, tricks, and best practices that we learn from our daily job working with customers and partners. Now, 90 minutes is a long time, but it's not enough to cover everything, so there are things like setting up and tuning Catalyst Center and your wireless, but many of my colleagues have sessions around this in Cisco Live. Now, it's obviously not possible to attend everything, but bear in mind there's Cisco Live on demand, so a couple of weeks after Cisco Live, every session of this will be recorded, available for you to consume. So when you get home and have detailed questions, you can follow this one. Now, a last point on logistics. There are slides with more details that we will present today, but they are relevant for your reference when you want to configure things at home. So we have them put into this slide, into the slides. We will also, and this is a pre-announcement, after the session, add another version of the presentation with additional slides. So there are a couple more slides, because we called it the ultimate guide, but 90 minutes, we had to condense a bit. So there will be additional things in the slides after the session. Please also use the WebEx space. If you have questions along the line, just put them in. We are monitoring and we are doing our best to answer the questions this week, and we will follow up with you on this one. Now with that, we know now why we do this. Let's get started with the... Not sure, that's not me. Can you tell me what's that?
We are gonna mix a little bit of fun with the presentation, and we're gonna talk a little about sailing. I am the one in the photo some years ago, but we're gonna talk a little bit about sailing without engines. There's no engines allowed. So we're gonna go and do a little bit of a sailing journey. We're gonna start from our home port, and Stefan and myself are gonna guide you through the different seas while we finally arrive to the supercharged port.
Did I mention that I'm from Austria, so my access to sea is when I do vacation in Spain, so I'm a bit limited in daily business.
So let's get started with Get Insights with AIOps. Now, before I show the first demo, after some years with Catalyst Center, Stefan and I have put together some list of things we recommend you check in your general settings, and all those are listed and have a hidden slide. We're not going to present all of them now, none of them actually, but they're for your reference in case you want to check. So these are the best practices we have accumulated throughout field experiences, so just for your information. Now, going back to the sailing, here today the wind is blowing from right to left, and if you thought we were going to go through a straight line, maybe some of you already know some sailing, that's not possible. You cannot sail against the wind, right? So today we're gonna do a zigzag, which is how you are supposed to sail, to arrive to our final destination. And yes, that works. Now, we will stop at some places along the way, but I don't wanna get ahead of myself. So let's get started with things you should configure. So first thing I'm gonna do is a quick demo of wireless assurance. What you can get in those 15 minutes when you have Catalyst Center already set up and the controller set up, how can Catalyst Center make your experience better? So let's get a look. So now I'm gonna go to the main menu, open assurance, health, and here I have the overall dashboard, which is a summary of how my network is doing, how my clients are doing, also how my network services are performing in my network. This gives me a quick idea of how things are going in my wireless network. Then I have some site analytics, and finally the top 10 issues at the bottom. This is a quick understanding of how my network is doing. Now I'm gonna go to the network dashboard, which is only focusing on how my network devices are doing. Catalyst Center can also do switching, so switches are also listed there, But now I'm going to focus on the wireless part, and you can see that there's one wireless controller that is doing fine, it's green, but I have 51 access points, and at the top right, at the bottom right corner, you see that a little red. That means one of my APs is not doing well. So I can quickly understand how my network devices are doing. I have one AP that is not performing well. Then I have several dashlets that give me information about the APs that have the highest client counts, APs with the highest interference, APs that are up and down, and finally a list of network devices that I can filter by network type with a poor health status, etc. That being said, now let's go to the next dashboard, which is the client dashboard. Sorry, the client 360. So I can also zoom in into an access point, a network device, and understand. This access point has a 10 out of 10 health score. Something happened there, it disconnected, so Catalyst Center is quickly telling me. Here I have some tools and physical neighbor topology, understanding how many clients are connected to this access point. And here I have the event viewer, which tells me all the events that are happening for this access point, and they are all logged for 30 days here for you. And finally, we have some detailed information. Specifically, I'm looking at the RF, channel utilization, client count. This is my lab, so not many clients, throughput, air quality, etc. And finally, the list of neighbor and ROCs and interferers that this AP is hearing, also with a graphical representation to help you understand how the wireless is doing. So this is about the AP360, and now let's look at the clients. Clients are really important because at the end, that's what matters. And here we have a summary of our clients, both wired and wireless. We're going to focus on the wireless. We have 18 connected clients. And if we zoom in and we look at the details, out of those 18, we have 3 that are not onboarded. Those cannot join the network. We can understand where they are, the top failure reason, the type of host they are, and finally, we can also get a list in case we're going to drill down and understand what's happening to those specific clients. We also have some dashlets about onboarding times, RSS site analytics, etc. that give us an understanding of what our clients are doing. And finally, the full list of our clients. Now, at the top right, I have the search button that I just clicked. And in this search button, I can input an IP address, a MAC address, even a username. Now I'm going to input Grace Smith, which is maybe some of you know Grace Smith already, is our favorite username. And we're going to get a list of all the devices that she has. So let's type her name. And now I go to the user, and I select the user 360 view. Now, here I can see that Grace has 5 devices, a lot of devices, an iPad, an iPhone 15, a PC, etc., right? And we can quickly see that between 5 a.m. and 9 a.m., Grace's iPad was having trouble. It's a red line there. We can also understand how is her onboarding, her roaming, if some of those events are complete, incomplete, they fail. How is she connected? Also, again, the onboarding, events, every event that happens to her, DHCP, association, etc., is logged, and I can see the timestamps, see what happened, if something went wrong or not. And finally, some detailed information about her iPad, and even we have iOS analytics, which Stefan will cover later on. So with this, we finish on Grace's demo. This helps us understand how Grace's iPad is doing with a lot of detail. And now we have a couple more dashboards, the AAA and the DHCP dashboards. And these dashboards just explains us how are those network services doing. What are the sites with the highest latency? How many DHCP transactions are failing? How many AAA transactions are failing? Network services are key to our network, and if they don't work, Wi-Fi doesn't work. So this dashboard is all about understanding how they are. And now that we finished the demo, I also wanted to explain a quick story. I have a customer that had a hospital, and they started using Catalyst Center, and thanks to the DHCP dashboard, they discovered that they had a really slow response, and they had had complaints for 1 year that the wireless was not working well, and finally they know the root cause, right? So the DHCP dashboard helped them understand that the issue why the wireless wasn't working was the DHCP. It was not something else. So my customer was really happy after that, and now he's a power user of Catalyst Center. Now, we have covered the demo. You can get that in 15 minutes, and now let's talk about what happens in those 15 minutes. So first, let's talk about the prerequisites, what you need. So first of all, under system settings, device controllability, you enable device controllability. And also under design network settings, under telemetry tab, you enable the wireless telemetry. And Stefan, these are on by default, right?
That's true. So actually, this is more for a reference. If you don't change anything and install Catalyst Center, this will be already set at this stage.
And now the fun part, opening the communications. Stefan and I both had a lot of fun with our customers and their firewalls. Make sure you open the necessary ports, otherwise you're going to suffer. It's all listed under the guide, so make sure you check those. These are the ones between the controller and Catalyst Center. And also between the access point and Catalyst Center, in one direction, you need to open those ports listed in the slide. Now, once you have done that, now you need to add your controller to Catalyst Center. How are we going to add the controller? We're going to discover it. So we go to Tools, Discovery, and we create a new discovery. And basically, with that discovery, the controller will be added to the inventory. So quick note, we need to enable it with netconf. Netconf is a programmatic way of configuring network-based devices. So when we do the discovery, we need to enable the port 100 and 830, which will be used for netconf. Now, once we have done that, and the controller has been discovered, we need to assign it to a building. So we go to the provision, inventory, and now I'm going to filter by unassigned devices, and here I have my controller, and I go to actions, provision, assign device to site, and I will have a screen that allows me to pick the site. Once that is done, now I can assign the APs as well. So the controller will sync, and all the APs will appear in the inventory automatically, and I also need to assign them to the corresponding floors. One thing I didn't cover is, if you assign it, you need to assign it to somewhere, right? So yes, you need to create the network hierarchy. There's also a hidden slide about that, but basically it's just about giving a name. You can put an area, a building, and a floor, and basically with that you create your hierarchy, which will be used throughout Catalyst Center. That was basically what you can get in 15 minutes, how you can get all I showed in the demo. So Catalyst Center can definitely help you get a lot of visibility there and be essential for your wireless operation. Now, let's talk about intelligent capture. So intelligent capture is an umbrella term for several things you can do in Catalyst Center, and let's first take a look at what you can do. So we're going to play the demo. I'm going again to Grace's iPad's view. And here I can see, again, her iPad. I'm going to, first, it's an iPad. She has the other devices. There you are, an iPad. She's associated with Wi-Fi 6. She's connected to the access point. And on the top right, I'm going to click now on the Intelligent Capture button, which is going to bring me the Intelligent Capture interface. Here, I can see on the left part the list of onboarding events that Grace has been going through, all listed. And on the right part, as soon as it loads, if I have uploaded my floor plans and I have integrated spaces, I can see the live location of Grace at the bottom right of the screen. She's moving a bit at the edge. Here I can see all the APs in that floor. And also, if I scroll down a bit, and it will also take a couple seconds to load, I get all very detailed RF statistics. So RSSI, SNR, with a lot of granularity, a 5-second granularity compared to the 5-minute that is given by default. So here I can quickly understand what's happening with a lot of detail for Grace in the last hour. Now, in the onboarding events, everything is green, but I have a button there called Anomaly. So when Catalyst Center detects that there's something off, it takes automatically a packet capture, a pickup. Now I'm filtering. Here I have an event that has an anomaly. And I can actually open that, download it and open it in Wireshark, but I can also consume it via Catalyst Center. So now I'm going to click on it, on this key exchange that failed, the 4-way key timeout. And here, again, I get the floor plan. And then right underneath the floor plan, I have a view of the different packets that happen and when it starts failing. So let's give it a couple seconds. There it is. So here, every triangle represents a packet. If the triangle is facing up, it's a client packet. If it's facing down, it's an AP. Then The columns are the time between packets, the inter-packet gap, and the line is the RSSI. And finally, the row is the associated AP. Here we can see 4 packets in red, and actually what happened here is that Grace's iPad stopped responding to the AP, and she was kicked out of the network. So intelligent capture took a capture and is showing us that she did not respond to the EAP request that the AP was making her. So that's the reason why she was kicked out of the network. Now, I just show you anomaly capture, which is the ability of taking a capture when something's off, when something doesn't make sense, and that's the anomaly capture. And I also show you how you can get more detailed client statistics. And this is also related to AP statistics, so they go together. Now, how do I enable this? This is not on by default, so it's good that you know that it exists. So you go to Assurance, Intelligent Capture Settings, and here I have the 2 things I described, AP stats and anomaly capture. They both work the same way, and I can enable them globally, meaning for a whole wireless LAN controller, or I can also selectively enable it for some APs. Now, a quick note, AP stat is limited to 1,000 APs, regardless of the size of your Catalyst center, so keep that in mind. Now, if I go to the global mode, I'm presented a list of my controllers. Here you see I have 3 in my lab, and I check one of them, and I click Enable, and basically that will take care of it, and it will be configured. Now, some tips and tricks about wireless assurance. If, for some reason, your device stops sending telemetry to Catalyst Center, which sometimes happens, we introduced a network reasoner tool, which is called Assurance Telemetry Analysis, that will do a lot of checks to help you understand why is the reason that your controller is not sending telemetry. So make sure you use that. Here you have some examples of some of the things it checks. Now, the typical thing that you will be asked if you open a case because you're not getting telemetry is to update telemetry settings with a force push. This basically removes all telemetry configurations and configures them again, so it's like rebooting your computer, but for telemetry. So make sure you learn how that this exists, and this is the #1 thing you should try after the workflow. So in order to do this, you go to the inventory, actions, telemetry, update telemetry settings, and don't forget to check mark the force configuration push. Now, finally, for the DHCP and AAA dashboards to work, the traffic needs to cross the controller. So it has to be or local mode or flex central switching. And one more note around intelligent capture. Catalyst Center doesn't yet read your mind. So if you set up intelligent capture and later on you add a new AP join profile, you need to tell the controller to send the data. You can do that in 2 ways. One is manually checking the AP profile, or another one is just you disable it for the controller and you enable it again, and then all AP profiles will be sending the telemetry. That was things you should configure. Now let's talk about some things you can configure to get the benefits from Catalyst Center. So let's talk about application experiences. Applications are very important, as you all know. So helping us understand how they're doing in network is one thing that Catalyst Center can do. So let's take a quick look at the demo here. Again, I'm in a user 360. The user is AC1, accounting 1, and he has a laptop 2, is its device. We have introduced now on the timeline the traffic usage. So the blue line there is the amount of traffic that this device is sending. This helps us understand how chatty this device is. And now if I go to the application experience section, I can get a list of all the applications this endpoint, this laptop is consuming. And if I click one of them, I can get also more detailed statistics. This is 1,000 eyes. So here I can see what is the throughput this application is consuming, what is the network latency, very detailed information about how this application is doing. Imagine this is WebEx or Teams or whatever you're using that is very important for your network and your clients. This can help you understand how it is performing in your network. Now, how do I enable this? Again, we go back to the inventory and we select our controller, go to Actions, Telemetry, Enable Application Telemetry. Here we're presented for what type of SSIDs we want to enable it. And once we do that, it will start sending the data. Now, some tips and tricks for this as well. When you enable application telemetry, the policy profile is shut down, so this is gonna, this means a disruption in your network, so do this with a maintenance window. And also, there was one dashboard I didn't do in the demo, maybe some of you noticed, is the DNS dashboard. I did that on purpose because in order for the DNS dashboard to work, you need to enable application assurance, so keep that in mind. And finally, in version 17.10, we added support for Fabric and Flex Connect local switching for application experience quantitative metrics, such as loss, jitter, and delay. So if you're in the supported version, the recommended version, you already have this, but just so you know. Now, a little bit going back to our sailing class today. Here you have a sailing boat. These are small boats. They are not like super long boats, but they're really fun, and I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the different parts in a boat. Maybe some of you already know sailing. Important piece, the mast that holds all the sails. Then we have the mainsail in the back of the boat, and then we have the triangular shape at the front, which is the jib, and the yellow-shaped sail, which is the spinnaker that you only use in some situations. Finally, the rudder. You probably all know that a rudder is important to steer you down the right direction, and the center board to make sure you don't drift through the wind. And there's one more, Stefan, that's very important, which is called the boom. The boom holds the sail at the bottom, and it has an interesting name.
That's true.
And let's get to why the name. The boom moves around when you're sailing because the sails go and move. And the boom can kick you out of the boat if you're not careful, because if you're standing up and it comes, it can throw you out. So I was told, not sure if it's true, that it's called the boom because it can boom you out of the boat. I have myself been thrown out of a boat because of it. So be careful, Stefan, when you sail, that the boom doesn't kick you out. Now, let's also talk a little bit about things you need on demand, things you can request Catalyst Center to do. We spoke a bit about intelligent capture. We spoke about anomaly and client statistics and AP statistics. Now let's look at RF spectrum and over-the-air capture. Before I open the demo, I showed you previously how to enable AP statistics. Now let's look from the AP what that offers. So this is the first part. Here I'm opening a device 360 for an access point. This is the name of the access point. And at the top right, I have the intelligent capture. This section is all about RF statistics. So this also helps me understand from the AP perspective how the RF is doing. These are very detailed 5-second statistics that are sent to Catalyst Center. Clients, channel utilization, top clients with transmission failed packets, etc. Right? This helps us understand with a lot of detail how this AP is doing RF-wise. Now, I have another tab at the top, which is the spectrum analysis. And this helps us do an on-demand RF analysis. So the AP is actually telling us what it's hearing. And here I can see the 2.4 frequency and how it is doing. I can also turn on the real-time fast Fourier transform. I understand that. And this is a Wi-Fi 6E AP. So I can also look at the other frequencies, right? The 6 gigahertz, etc. So this is a way to, on demand, without sending someone in person, understand how the RF is doing in your network. Now, this is about RF statistics and spectrum analysis. We have another feature which is over-the-air capture. What does this mean? Well, we have had for a long time the possibility of converting your access point into a sniffer. So it is able to capture everything that's on the air and send it to you. Now we have enabled the possibility of doing this from Catalyst Center. We have having to put any TFTPs or anything, right? It's all done through a GUI. So over-the-air capture will help you do a capture, so convert an AP into sniffer mode. Let's take a look at how do you trigger this. Again, from the AP360, blue button, run OTA capture. Now you select an access point, whichever you want, and you click on next. And you're going to be offered the list of the band, the radio, and the channel width, and finally the specific channel you want to do a capturing. Now you're going to be warned that this is disruptive, because when you do this, your AP will stop serving clients. It's only going to be listening and doing a capture. So be careful when you do this. I actually used this a couple of weeks ago when I got my Wi-Fi 7 AP because my iPhone 16 was not associating using Wi-Fi 7, so I wanted to understand what was going on the air. Now, this is what I just explained. AP packet capture, the first one is OTA sniffer, so converting your AP into sniffer mode, and it captures everything, right? There you have the list of the required versions. Now, we have a couple more captures that you can do, onboarding packet capture and full packet capture. So how do you run a client live packet capture? You go to the Client 360 view, open Intelligent Capture again, and at the top right, you have the blue button, Run Packet Capture. And now you have to select the different packet captures. A quick note, what are the differences? This is also for your reference, but the onboarding packet capture doesn't have a client impact, so you can do it without stopping any clients, and it captures everything related to onboarding. So authentication, association, etc. This is supported in all our access points. And then we have the full packet capture, also no client impact, and the difference is that it captures everything. This is supported in our medium to high-end APs only, and you have the list there. Now, a very nice thing about this feature is that it doesn't matter if your client roams from an AP to another one, the packet capture Catalyst Center will follow the client, and it will automatically switch to the corresponding AP. And also, we have the encryption keys. So whenever you download this capture, it's going to be decrypted. So it makes it very easy to use and consume the final capture. We have some islands, right? That's what was missing. We just went through the basics island, and we spoke a little bit about the basic things you should configure. Now, we have other stops along the way, right? More other...
That's true, right? So we are on our sailing journey, right? We now crossed the island of the basics, and Ignacio was your guide on this island. And now let's cross over to the some more details island. Now go, whoa! I was the DHCP octopus or something like that. No, but we are luckily with Ignacio who can do sailing, so I'm not the best skipper or captain maybe. So, but I'm your tour guide now on the some more details island. So come with me on this island and let me explain what this is about for you. Now some more details. What's the section here about? Everything Ignacio has shown you is about how you can get all the data, the value out of the network, from your access points, from your controller, from the services that are crossing your network. Now, what if we also want to see what is the client seeing from our network? What are the client's software version they are using? What are the disconnect reasons? Those things are also important, right? And client analytics helps you on this front. Now, what is client analytics? It's something that is born on the relationship and working together with major device vendors, namely, in this case, Apple, Samsung, as well as Intel, where those devices, when connected to a Cisco network, will share some more details, like I explained, software version, hardware, how they see the network, and things like that. Now, the cool thing on this is that you don't need to install anything on the client. So I repeat, there's no additional software you need to put on those clients to get this information. Yes, there's a minimum software version you have to run, obviously, but that's it. The clients, when connected, will be able to share this information. So no client configuration or application on it. Now, what is the information they are actually sharing? Now, I have a few examples for you, and I want to just guide you through that. Like explained, you will get from this client the hardware as well as the software version. That's one piece. In this case, an iPhone 14. And there's this iOS Analytics tab. Now, if you click on this, which brings you to the bottom of the page, it shows you a site where you can see how the client sees your wireless network, right? So the client scans for beacons, sees some BSSID, and it can report this to you. So it's really the client view. Now, on the other side, it also tells you what was the reason for the disconnect. Like in this example, I turned off my Wi-Fi and the client obviously disconnected. So it was not an issue of the Wi-Fi. Maybe it was actually the user doing something differently. Now, looking at Intel, just to take this example as well, we get as well what is the device, the operating system. Now there's a bit more detail under the device info that I want to highlight here as well. So again, if we go under device info, you will scroll to the bottom of the page, and when we zoom in a bit, there's this section which is called station information, which is Intel-specific. What you will get is even the driver version that's installed on this PC. And if it's powered in the power outlet or if it's running on battery, right? The AC-DC voltage basically tells you this. So it's really detailed information. Now if you go back up and look at the Intel Connectivity Analytics tab that's also there, and we should look what's showed there, this is also really cool, right? The client, when it's roaming, will tell you what was the trigger for the roam, got some information through 8.2.11v or something else. What were my candidate APs, so I have a scan list, I try to connect, and what was my actual selected AP, and what was the RSSI value on this. So it's really powerful when you analyze and troubleshoot, because, I mean, when you have a support ticket and try to get which channel you are connected from a client or what was your other SSIDs you can see, that's potentially a hard thing on the phone if you don't have very skilled employees on this end. Now, this is just for your reference, right? As I said, there's a minor version, minimum version on hardware as well as software you have to run on your clients, but there's no configuration on the client side that needs to be done. Nevertheless, infrastructure side, you have to do a few settings. Now, first of all, you have to enable global device classification under your wireless, and you have to enable it also on the policy profile, right? This is important so that we try and start to classify the devices. Now, under your SSID settings, there are a few checkboxes you need to do. First of all, you need to do a checkmark for advertised support and PC analytics support. The one is for Samsung, the other is for Intel. Apple works out of the box, nothing to do here. And if you want to get this information, how the client sees your wireless network, for Samsung, you have to enable those on-demand requests. It's basically the controller querying the client to send him this data. One remark that's also very important. For Intel Connectivity Analytics to work, your management frame protection setting needs to be set at least to optional or mandatory. So if you're running WPA3, where PMF is mandatory, all good. If not, this is something you need to change. Otherwise, you won't get this information as well. Now, some tips and tricks. Now, I said the client tells me this information. Obviously, if the client tells me the AP receives the packet, it forwards it to the controller has the information, and it sends it through telemetry to Catalyst Center, and you can consume it there, like I have shown before. Those information, like what is the device, how he can see the wireless network, is obviously available on the controller GUI itself and CLI as well, right? So you can query this information. Now, if you want to query this information, you don't need to go to the controller itself, right? There's a tool which we call Command Runner that you can use directly out of Cisco Catalyst Center to run those commands on a regular basis and consume the information. So there's no need to go there as well. Now the question would be, why would I need that? Now, there are some remarks I must make, right? macOS devices, they actually don't have an iOS analytics tab, right? I mean, it's macOS, no iOS analytics tab. Makes kind of sense, but nevertheless, the data is actually there, right? Those devices share the data, they are available on the controller, and they are available on Catalyst Center through API. Now, there can be people in the audience, obviously, that say, using Postman, writing a little script, knowing the API endpoint, no problem, I can get this data. If you want to have an easier way to consume it, maybe you want to stay until the end and have one more thing on this one for you. Now, if you're missing some data, as I said, the path is the client needs to send it. Obviously, the controller needs to receive it and forward it. If it's maybe if you see it on the controller but not on Catalyst Center, those are the subscriptions that I would recommend you to double check to make sure the data is forwarded. Two additional notes that are really vital so that you have really all the bells and whistles on this, right? For scale purpose, because there could be big wireless networks, 30,000 clients, things like that, right? Where there are a lot of those reports shared from Intel devices. And to be able to cope with this, we are caching on the controller for 5 minutes those packets from individual clients. And only after 5 minutes, we will basically make the latest version of the packets available That's a reason for scale. So if you have a delay for Intel, that's the reason on this. And I need to make this remark on PMF optional and required for Apple Analytics. There's this defect that's here listed that currently leads to the fact if this is enabled on association and roaming, we have challenges currently to decrypt this packet, but you will get this information on group rekey timers. Now what's also cool, and I said already, it's really important to know that as well, you can actually trigger from your infrastructure a packet, this radio measurement request, send it to the client, and the client will then look around and tell you, oh, this is the access points and the signal strength I actually currently see. That's really powerful when you can do this on demand, as you like, and when you want it. Now this was our some more details island. Please come back to the boat and get on board because Ignacio helps us now to get to the next island, which is our platform advantage. But before we go over, Skipper needs to explain how to get to the right sailing. So Nacho.
Yeah, we said this at the beginning, you cannot sail against the wind. So I wanted to explain a bit more how that works. And basically, there are different points of sail you can take. So the close hole when you are like almost against the wind, then the beam reach when you are 90 degrees, then the broad reach, and finally the run. So these are different points of sail you're using when you're sailing. And depending on those, you need to trim the sails in a way or another, as you can see in the pictures. Now, a fun fact that some people don't know is that everyone thinks that the fastest way to sail is completely in favor of the wind, so when the wind is blowing from your back. But that's not true, Stefan. I don't want to get into the physical details because we're not going to talk about physics here, but actually the fastest points of sail are between the beam reach and the broad reach, depending on your boat, but that's how you actually achieve the fastest speeds. So perfect. I hope everyone knows a little bit more about wireless, also sailing after today.
Then take it, and we are moving to the platform advantage island, thanks. Now we are moving to this one and want to look at what we want to explore here now. Now, we have a lot of data that's coming from the network already in this platform Catalyst Center. And there are things we have shown you for your daily troubleshooting when you have one client specifically problem, when you want to analyze how the RF spectrum. But there's also value in this data. Now, machines are really good on analyzing and getting sense out of big data. We call it machine learning, AI, things like that. And the platform advantage is really about these things. What can you do additionally on top once you already have this data? Now, sorry for that. Obviously, AI needs to be in our slides as well. But I must admit, the focus on our AI analytics part, which we call also AI network analytics, which was launched quite some time back already, is how can we make really meaningful data for you, that's reasonable, right? Not only just telling you there's something off, but also the reasoning all behind it, where this data is coming from. Now let me guide you through a few settings on this, a few parts of AI analytics, because it's actually multidimensional on this end. Now, AI analytics, there are parts which, the first one I want to show is site analytics, is about how you can get a good, easy understanding of the key performance indication of your wireless network on a bigger scale. Now it's about how does your wireless perform on a big scale, as I said, not like is an individual client having problems. It's about does it work, onboarding, does it perform, how is it the connection speeds, how are the roaming speeds, right? And you can get an understanding very easily, is there a building, and you can drill down to the floor level that are having some problems and they need to take care of this. Now it's not only about getting the broad view. As I said, it's also about where is the actual problem? Give me the root cause. And we are giving additional details the further down you go on this one, right? What is the background on those problematic states? Now you can look in different KPIs, obviously, and understand what's going on. And as I said, drill into, for example, even the floor level. Now once you're at the floor level, or even higher, as explained, this helps you then, oh, it's red. Let me see where are the values of, what are actually the triggers of those, and how many onboarding attempts have failed, how many onboarding attempts do I actually have. And it goes to the point where I can see, oh, what are the access points on this line with the red dots? They would be bigger if there are more clients associated. Tells you, oh, there's actually this individual access point with so many clients that having really problems. And if you have floor maps, you even see the location on the building. So bringing all this data together for you to get an easy understanding where I need to focus my energy for the next couple of minutes and hours. Now, this is the AI analytics part. However, there's more about those sections, which I want to show you now. Now, there's trends and insight. What is this about? This is about more looking into the future, right? Seeing how the baselines between your buildings, your access points, your KPIs between your clients are maybe deviating from the baseline. And where do you want to focus now, right? There are different ones like co-channel interference, high AP density, yes, the Kimber instances where you have too many APs, or maybe low AP density. Are there APs that are transmitting at a high power, but still the KPIs of your clients with RSSI, SNR not keeping up with that? How is that compared on your personal network to all your other radios? Right? The question is really about how it's in your network, not compared to what we would recommend or what would be the standard at all, right? So it's really about this understanding for you and giving you a guidance to the point, those are the locations, the clients that are impacted. Let's focus on them. As I said, what's the basis for all of this? It's your infrastructure. It's feeding data into Catalyst Center. That's the step number one. We have already done, right? That was the introduction which you configured. Now, in the next step, you can, and it's optional, and you can enable it, connect your network with AI Network Analytics Cloud, where we only analyze your network KPI data, no personal identifiable information is shared on this point, to really make a dynamic baseline based on your situation, your network, right? It's not about someone else's network, it's your network, right? And the reason for that is we want to get rid of the noise, right? If you have static thresholds, best practices that are not according to your network, right? Manufacturing, healthcare, it's maybe different than your education. And all of that has different things that we have to look at. And we really want to cut out the noise and just give you meaningful issues, alerts, alarms, and trend lines. Now, I showed you the trends and the insights, where it's more about getting proactive, where I need to focus now after I've sorted all the rest out. And there's also something which we build in is comparative analytics. You might have places where you have old APs still, like 2800s, 3800 APs, that are up for refresh, but you have already buildings on Wi-Fi 7, right? Maybe you want to understand, is the performance really better on all the KPIs? Is this something I can present my management to see, like, guys, the Wi-Fi is operating better. If we want to do this refresh, I would highly recommend to continue that, right? Those discussions is what we want to assist you with. Now, the cool thing is, to get this, it's really easy, right? Go under your Catalyst Center, System Settings, AI Analytics, and just enable it. The only thing you need to decide is where do you want to store your data, right? That's the only thing, and there's one data center in Europe, actually in Germany. And then, once enabled, please be a bit patient, right? We are baselining your network with your data, which takes about 1 or 2 weeks before we can really give you some recommendation, before we can find insights, right? We have no data before you haven't enabled that, all right? And all of this relies on good, valuable data. So give it some time to get this data. Now, this was AI network analytics. It's about understanding the performance. Now, if we have all this information, wouldn't it be really cool to use it to actually act on it, to change things in your network? Radio resource management, the capability of your wireless to change channels, channel width, power levels, to make the best wireless experience for your client, assisted with AI, that's AI RRM. That's another part that we have within Catalyst Center and your controllers that allows you to optimize your wireless network so that it's really keeping up with the promise and the experience the users are expecting. It's reducing your co-channel interference, increasing signal-noise ratio by optimizing your channel plans, and that's fully automatic. So we really recommend you to have a look on this. We won't go into too much detail on that. Again, a remark, there's a Cisco Live on Demand a couple of weeks from now where you can rewatch, for example, this session from Jim. We are going into all the details, how this works in the backend and how to do it. Now with that, we move on the island and leave the AI part. Now, there are also very tangible, easy things that you maybe have to use, right? Or want to use. Now, in Europe, there's obviously something that the energy costs now back to more or less normal, but they have been rising very high a couple of years back, right? Now, our APs now have a functionality that's called AP Power Save Mode, and not sure we'll go into this later on a bit more detailed. But it's about how can we, during off-business hours, maybe turn off 6 gigahertz and 5 gigahertz, or reduce just what the access point can do, provide just a basic service, and save some energy. Now, the one thing is that you can configure that, but maybe you want to understand, oh, do I actually save some energy? This is also happening within Catalyst Center. You can consume this information from your switches, and then with this configuration done, you will be able to monitor what's actually the energy I'm saving on this one. Now, one additional thing on the platform stuff. Multicast DNS Bonjour service monitoring. So if you're not aware what this is, it's about those devices that announce, oh, you can do a screen sharing, you can do an audio replay, you can share files, things like that. Those services are typically using Multicast DNS to announce their availability, right? So they basically shout out, you can do screen sharing with me. Now those Multicast DNS, as the name says, is multicast. As we know, wireless multicast means broadcast. It's flooding a lot in your network. And Multicast DNS is a layer 2 protocol that basically floats around. Now, this is a recommendation beyond this session. Please take care of this and manage it, because newer devices are very chatty on this, and they will produce a lot of this Multicast DNS traffic, and you want to control it in the sense of that it's not just flooding around and eating time on your network. Now, if you have Catalyst Center, you can go to the point where Multicast DNS can be not only controlled, but also monitored. Your wireless LAN controller, in combination with a Catalyst 9K switch and Cisco Catalyst Center, with a couple of lines of configuration per controller as well as the switch, gives you a visibility in those services that are actually announced by the devices. You can understand how many displays, airplays maybe are in my network, how many other things are announced, printers, for example, and actually some more details, what is the device and all of these things. So this is also something that you can benefit of once you have Cisco Catalyst Center and your devices feeding data into this platform. Now coming back to our sailing journey, right? Let's see, there's another island we want to explore, which would be the new cool stuff.
Yeah.
That's something for the cool guy here.
Probably everyone imagines what that means, but before we do that, again, just to pause a bit, here we have a picture of a boat. I'm the one in the back, and I wanted to talk about the yellow sail, right, a bit. The yellow sail, as I said, is called the spinnaker or jenaker, and I really like the sail because it gives you an extra boost of speed, so you can actually glide over the sea when there's enough wind, and it's a really fun thing to do. So when you take it out, it's actually even more fun. So as Stefan was saying, the next island is the new cool stuff, and the new cool stuff is the new kid around the corner, which is Wi-Fi 7. So you probably all know about the access points we released last year, 9176 and 9178. And this week we also have announced the low end, the 9172, and the omnidirectional and the wall plate APs. So let's talk a little bit about how you see those in Catalyst Center. So with the current recommended release, which is 2377, you can actually have those APs in the inventory. You don't need to upgrade or anything. And you can also leverage, if you're using Catalyst Center for wireless automation, they also are supported. You will get assurance up to Wi-Fi 6E functionality. So for the newest stuff, MLO, preamble puncturing, etc., you need the next version, 2379, which should be coming soon out. But don't worry, if you want to go ahead and get some Wi-Fi 7, you can stay on the current recommended release. Now, I wanted to show you in this demo what is coming in 2379. So here is my lab, and here in the inventory, I have a list of some APs. You see some of them are already Wi-Fi 7, 9178, 9176. They're all working. And let's start with the assurance. So if I go to assurance health, if I go to the client dashboard, and I scroll down a bit more, there's new dashboards that tell me how many MLO clients I have. So here I can understand which of my clients are using MLO and in what frequencies. So if I zoom in and view the details, on the right side, I can see that I have 5 clients that are using MLO, and it also tells me with what frequencies. Are they using 2.4 and 5, 5 and 6, or the 3 of them? In this case, I selected only one that is using the 3 at the same time. Now also on the client table, in the band column, I can also understand each client, what frequencies is using. Now, let's try to find a client. Let's zoom in, and we're gonna pick the one that is using the 3 frequencies. So that's an iPhone, in this case, an iPhone 16. And if we zoom in, now we're gonna get some extra details that we didn't see before. So it is associated with Wi-Fi 7, it's using the Live MLO SSID. Now let's go. So the first thing is under onboarding, you can now see what frequencies is this iPhone using, so it's using the 3 at the same time. And also at the bottom in the device info, we can see to what frequencies is associated and which one is actually being used in case there's only one being used. As I said, Wi-Fi 7. And also on the ref tab, we have updated the information and we show the aggregate RSSI and SNR for the 3 frequencies. And also we can see it per band. In this case, it was only using one, so there's only one line. But if they were using more than one frequency, you would see the 3 lines or 2 lines. Now, let's look at the AP perspective. Now let's see what has changed in the AP Device 360 view. So, well, this AP is having a lot of trouble. There's a lot of higher utilization and a lot of interference in 2.4. One more reason to switch to Wi-Fi 7. But here, what has changed is now I also see under the topology how many MLO links I have. So I have 3 clients in the 5 gigahertz, and 2 of those are MLO. They're using MLO links, and I can also see who they are and what frequencies are also connected to. And this is the new stuff that is coming in 2079, which should be out soon. Now, this is all for the first part, the Get Insights with AIOps. Hopefully, you have seen the value that Catalyst Center can give you for understanding how is everything working, right? So let's go to the next part, which is the NetOps C. We're now going to explore the Network Operations 101. So how we can operate efficiently with NetOps. NetOps is all about doing tasks in a more automated fashion, right? Instead of having to go through a bunch of controllers, doing CLI, Catalyst Center will help you through graphical user interface to do some of these tasks easily. And the first part is the NetOps 101, as I said, and a small detail, you know, licensing and Cisco, but we wanted to show you a very quick way to stay compliant with your licensing. Maybe some of you have heard, with Wi-Fi 7, we are down the road to actually do license enforcement. It's not going to be out there yet, but it's coming. So you're going to need to use this sooner or later. So we just wanted to show you how it works. So how do you report the license consumption? You go to Tools, License Manager, you go to the Reporting tab, and there you can find a workflow which is called the Smart License Compliance Workflow. You open it, it's a very easy workflow, and basically you need to select what smart account and what virtual account you want to report the usage, and Catalyst Center is going to do the rest for you. It's going to pull the information from the controller of how many APs you have, what license level you're using, then it's going to upload it to Cisco's website, and then Cisco is going to push back an acknowledge. And the acknowledge will be installed in the controller, and you will be good. You only have to do this one time in the lifetime of the controller or network device. So you need to do it once, unless you remove Catalyst Center from the network. But if you have the same Catalyst Center, you do it once, and then after that, periodically, Catalyst Center will go back and fetch the information. Currently, if you're doing on-prem CSSM, you can do that, that's completely fine, but you do everything from there. You cannot leverage the automation yet from Catalyst Center. And as I said, the workflow runs automatically in the background. So in case you add more APs, don't worry, Catalyst Center will do by default in 90 days, we'll go back, fetch the information and report it. So you don't have to worry again about reporting the usage consumption. So this is all about the NetOps 101, some quick things that you can do with NetOps.
Okay. So let's explore another island we want to see. The Ease Your Life island is actually what we want to have now. Oh. So we are crossing the sea, as you can see, to get to Ease Your Life. Is this actually you, Ignacio?
Yep, yeah, some years ago, but yeah.
Yeah, but I can't see you. So this is the cool stuff, right?
Yeah, you can see here some sailing.
Yeah.
I was having a lot of fun.
Okay. Oh. I mean, I'm not a sail expert, but Nacho, is this supposed how sailing works?
No, but I think capsizing is not part of the...
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. So that's at least what I got.
But it happens. I didn't get wet that time. I don't know if you noticed, but I was able to jump quickly and,
yeah.
Well, it wasn't that quick.
You're young,
like a smooth
right?
capsizing, but sometimes you get wet.
So I assume there are also sail experts here that could help you on this one as well. No, but coming back to the topic, right? How we want to ease your life also with some network operations. How can this be done? What are there? Now, from time to time, Nacho already has shown you, we bring some new access points, right? That's not just because we want to do it, but it's also the standard evolves and you want to make a good wireless experience, where many times also clients evolve. So this is something where you need to, from time to time, put new APs into operation. Now, when you refresh the access points, typically, at least my customers say, yeah, I just want to pull the one AP down, get the new one up. It should have the same name, it should be on the same position in the Catalyst Center map, and it should have the same configuration, right? It's very obvious that this is what you want to do. Now, Cisco Catalyst Center has a workflow that really helps you to achieve that in an easy way. Now, how can you do that? Let me show it. As explained, when there are tasks like something like a access point refresh, we put this into a so-called workflow. So on Catalyst Center, if you go to workflows and search for refresh access point workflow, it guides you through these steps. Now it explains in a lot of words what it actually will do, but I will summarize that for you now. Now, it's basically, you give it a name, and then you want to continue by, okay, let me select some access point. There's also those different use cases. We are selecting for this purpose now the assurance use case, which is what we have demonstrated today now. Now you can select now one AP, like a whole floor, a whole building, APs that are already unreachable or still connected to your network, and say, I want to replace them. Now obviously you need to tell Catalyst Center what's the new AP. There's the one path where you can individually select the serial numbers or enter them also with CSV, or, and this is the really cool stuff, you can do it based on CDB neighborship. So the old AP reports the switchboard number he's connected to. And you basically tell Catalyst Center in this workflow, you know what? When this one is offline, and a new AP comes with whatever serial number it has, but it tells you it's on the same switch, same port, you should rather replace the old one because this is the new AP. Now, it's seriously making this refresh a lot easier, right? The times where you have to write a list for your electric guy or handyman, where the serial number exactly tells him where he needs to put them, and he still does not do it, right? This is not needed anymore, right? You just say, this floor, I want to refresh my access points now during the weekend. You hand him over a box of your newest arrived access points. You go on your weekend, and on Monday, when you come back, you just click on refresh and look if everything went through. Catalyst Center, as I said, recognizes the new AP, will configure it with the same name, same configuration, put it on your map, everything is working. Now, what is a prerequisite that I need to highlight here? In order for this to work, the AP that you put in operation needs to join the same controller that the old AP was connected to. And it's a very easy reason, right? Because the configuration on this controller is there. We know it's correctly configured. and we don't want to push something on other controllers. So this is the only prerequisite, get the new AP connected to the same controller like the old AP was, because then we are able to actually put the configuration for this AP, policy tag, site tag, RF tag, and we will do the rest on Catalyst Center. Inventory will be replaced, and the access point will be put on the map, everything running. Now I really like, customers' feedback typically was, yeah, I was waiting for that, maybe a bit too late. That's the only thing they said. Now, if you have access points, many of my customers put them on those maps, right? They get floor plans, they put the access points on the maps. It makes their troubleshooting easier to understand where those clients are. So it's something that a lot of customers are doing. Now, this is very often a job of interns during summertime to do this, what happened the last year, to replace those APs, put them on the map. But what if I tell you that you need to find another task for those interns potentially, right? AP Autolocate is a capability on your access points combined with Catalyst Center and the controller that the access points find the relative position to each other and can be positioned on a floor map automatically. There's nothing else needed, no cloud, no CMX, no Cisco spaces. This AP Autolocate functionality works directly on your controller, APs, and Catalyst Center. Now, how does this actually work? Let me show you this in a little demo. Now, as I said, you need to go under Design Network Hierarchy, because there is the point where your maps are, and you select the site you are, maybe the RAI, where we are, and you say, like, let me auto-locate access points. Now, the first step is that those APs need to find their relative position to each other. They need to measure it. So the first step is you need to run this measurement report. Now, this will be run on a site tag basis, so all APs sharing a site tag will run it. And it's that's important, right? There's color that should take your attention. It's disruptive. What I mean by that, run it during off hours. Because the technology we use so that the position of those APs is found is called find time measurement. And it will use your 5 and 6 gigahertz and swap it on the same channel to find each other's position to each other. The process takes 15 minutes, so it's not like hours, right? It takes about 15 minutes, and then those APs have found their position to each other. But as I said, there's a big warning, do it off business hours. So you typically should not be able to miss it. You have been here today, so you know it. So if you still do it, I'm a bit upset, but yeah, I at least told you this. Now, once those measurements are done, right, the wireless LAN controller will report this to Catalyst Center. You go back to this to the same page, auto-locate your access points. And now the next step is that 4 APs you need to position manually. Those are so-called anchor APs. So you need to know this position of them very precisely, put them on the map, say this is an anchor AP, this is where I know, this is the position where it's actually sitting. And there are different ways you can do that, obviously, but then just select them. Once that's done, you have seen on the top right, Run Autolocate is available now, and now I can just run it. And the measurements combined with the anchor APs help me to position the APs. Now you can then review the result if it's what you expected. If it's not, you can discard, you can use it. Because it's also useful if you want to check if the things are still like they are on my map, right? You have maybe a map and APs positioned, but sometimes during troubleshooting you have the feeling someone maybe has put the AP not where it's on this map, right? You can just use that to understand, is that actually the case, right? Is the AP maybe not even in this building? Hopefully not, right? But that's something you could use it for as well. Now, what do you need for that? 17.12.4 supports our mid-high range Wi-Fi 6, 6E access points on this one. So this is the access point types you are currently need for this functionality to work. And the measurement data is actually stored on the controller itself. Now I have played around in the lab, obviously, and I've put my positions of the APs around, shuffled them around, but this is actually stored on the controller. So if you're playing in the lab, this is what you need, this command, to clean out some old measurement reports. Otherwise, you maybe mix some different position of those APs. But it's more a lab use case. I think in the office, you don't run around and put your APs from time to time just left and right for the sake of doing it, right? Now, let us get back on our boat and set sail to come to the next island, Advanced NetOps. Nacho,
Yeah.
what do you have for us?
So Catalyst Center, if you want to take it a step further in your automation journey, can also help you configure easily and in a scalable way all your wireless settings. So a quick clarification here. You can have your controllers, let's say, in two modes in your Catalyst Center, what we call manage only, which is what we have been talking until now, which is basically you have a brownfield controller that has been going on for a while, then you adopt Catalyst Center, you discover it, and then you get all the assurance, everything we show. This is what we call the manage only. And then there's another situation, which is you also provision it, meaning you configure in the graphical user interface of Catalyst Center several things, and then you push those, you provision those in the controllers. So some of the things I'll show later on only work in the later scenario, and when that happens, I have a little, the manage and provision icon on the top right, so you make sure, so it's clear. Now, as I said, you want to automate, you want to have a scalable way of configuring several controllers. We are here for you. Catalyst Center can help you with that, and it is using intent-based networking. Intent-based networking was launched years ago by Cisco, and the idea is you express what you want, the configuration you want, and Catalyst Center will take care of converting that into configurations for you in a scalable way. So we don't have a lot of time today. There's a dedicated session on this topic specifically if you're interested, and you can check it afterwards, but I still want to give you an overall idea of how it works. You as the user go to the Catalyst Center graphical user interface, and under network settings, you can decide your SSIDs, RF profiles, AP join, etc. You configure that. Now, you group all of those under a network profile. And the network profile is an abstract concept that is basically linking settings to a site. Imagine Stefan in Vienna, myself in Madrid. I have the same SSID in both locations, but I have different VLANs for some reason in the two locations, right? So I would have two separate network profiles, one for Vienna, one for Madrid, that will share the same SSID. So I'm reusing some of the objects to be scalable, and that's what the network profile is doing. Now, once you have created the network profile, you provision the controller or the controllers, and Catalyst Center will convert all those settings that you did in the graphic, in the GUI, into specific configurations that are only for the relevant locations of the controllers. This is a brief summary. Now, we spoke about AP Power Profiles. You can also configure AP Power Profiles directly on the controller, but if you're doing what I just explained, you can also do it in Catalyst Center, and I just quickly wanted to show you an example. And if I go to Design, Network Settings, Wireless, and then I create a Power Profile on the top right, here I put a name, and then I create a rule. For example, let's say that during off hours, I want to convert my 6 GHz network from a 4x4 to a 1x1 because there shouldn't be much traffic. I can do that. I can also turn off a specific radio. So I create that power profile. Once I have created it, I go to the, again, network settings, wireless, and I create or edit an existing AP profile. And under the power tab, I can go to the calendar power profile, click on a new one, and I say, from this time to this time, I want to use the power profile I created, right? So from 6 p.m. until 8 a.m., I want to do this power save mode to save energy. So basically, that's the idea. We just covered some advanced NetOps topics, and our latest islands is the DevOps islands before we get to the final destination. So we just wanted to briefly give you some ideas. DevOps is all about using automation, scripts, Python, etc., to do some tasks that are not yet supported or maybe are very specific to your customer or your network. So let's take a look at some examples. The first one is a script I built. I had a customer that came to me with a problem. Nacho, I have several controllers, several APs, and I want to know which APs have this controller as primary and which APs as secondary, etc., right? And okay, I went looking, and there was no report available yet on Catalyst Center to do this, and it was not possible to see it in the inventory. The inventory is very flexible, and you can add more columns or remove columns, but this was not a column that I could add. However, as you can see in the screenshot, if I go to the device detail, the information was there in Catalyst Center. So what I did is I found the right API, and I called the API for all my inventory APs, and I created this CSV file. My customer was very happy, and they could quickly understand which APs depend on one controller, and they have the right setting for the secondary, etc. Right? I have led the script in this GitHub repo in case you want to use it or get inspired by how it works. And one more thing. Right, Stefan? We are not Apple, but one more thing.
That's not, but I promised you something if you stay until the end, and thanks a lot. A lot of you are following this, right? If you remember client analytics, that yes, you can access some information through the API of Catalyst Center, and there's a lot of more details there, but it's maybe not so easy to consume for some of you. Now there's also this, I would say, a bit more current, right? The scan reports as well, the on-demand requests. If you do that on the controller, it's like, boom, it's in this second, something is sent, something is received, I can see it. When it's going through telemetry, it's fast, but it's not instant on Catalyst Center GUI, because obviously it needs to be sent, processed, and then shown to you. So maybe you have a need in a troubleshooting scenario where you want to say, I actually would need to have all this data really effortlessly, on time, at this stage in Catalyst Center. Is there actually a way? Now for you and for today, I have built this wireless operations body Chrome extension, which is hosted under this GitHub repo, which is basically integrated when you are logged in your Catalyst Center to actually help you get this information like I described. Now let me show you a brief demo on this one here, right? In this case, I have an iOS device that has some information already shared, right? And in this iOS Analytics tab, I see what it already has processed and I have on Catalyst Center. I execute now this operations body and get the current information from the controller, which basically will use the command runner to query these CLI commands from your controller and get you the latest information. Now, if you pay attention to the details, you see 3 APs that are reported on the Catalyst Center that are already processed and visualized, but actually on directly the wireless LAN controller, you would have 4 APs because the client has already seen one more with different RSSI. So it's really helping you in that instance of troubleshooting to get this actual current information, right? And if you would click the send radio measurement request, it actually will send this request to an Intel Samsung device and it will report back and visualize it. This is something I have built for you for today, and thanks for staying so long. So this is obviously available for you. It's an example, but it's something I hope is of value for you. Now, I would say we need to get back on our boat and sail to our Puerto de Supercharged, and I hope my pronunciation, sorry for any Spanish people that are now obsessed, but we really want to get you home now because our sailing journey together comes slowly to an end. We have crossed a lot of seas, AIOps Sea, NetOps Sea, DevOps Sea, right? We have explored a lot of those islands. As a tour guide, I'm more the guide on the island. Nacho helps us to get from A to B. But it was that we wanted to demonstrate the value of Cisco Catalyst Center so you can supercharge your wireless and bring it to your next level. This was our intention. And we hope that you get now home, use all the functionality and value you have seen from Catalyst Center, and really supercharge your wireless and get it to the next level for your users, for your business. Now there's one last sailing lesson we don't want to miss, right?
When you go home, don't forget to wash your boat. If you sail in a salty sea, you want to take the salt out so the board doesn't break.
So like you take care of your wireless, also take care of your boat. That's the message here. Now, if you have questions, obviously, put them in the WebEx app. We are staying also here if you would have questions. And if you could do us a favor and fill out the survey for this session, we would highly appreciate to get your feedback and understand where we can improve and add data and information to this session. And by that, we want to wish you a good rest of Cisco Live. Thanks for attending. Thank you very much.